Hi there, Carolyn Peeler with you in Ellen Hudson's classroom, and today I'm bringing you a tutorial featuring the Christine Adolph Adhesive Rub-ons. These are manufactured by Prima Marketing. It's a beautiful product line designed by a fabulously talented designer, and I was excited to play with them and share them with you today. First thing you're going to do is decide which design you'd like to use from the sheet. I'm choosing the one on the lower left. On the sheet that I'm using, which is the honeycomb sheet, there are 5 different options. Then you're going to want to grab your foil sheet. The one I'm using is the Shine On collection. Once you have those set, you're going to get going. So you'll want a piece of white cardstock if you're going to do it exactly the way I am. You'll peel the backing off of this rub-on, and then each set of rub-ons comes with a popsicle stick included. You're going to use that popsicle stick to rub, and if you can see there is a slight color change when you rub. It's actually incredibly easy to see when you're using it. It doesn't show up super well in the video, but you can actually tell if you look carefully. When the color changes, the rub-on has transferred from being on the sheet to being on your paper, and you can lift off your top paper. Next thing you're going to do is take your foil, place it over top, and you're going to do the exact same thing. You're simply going to rub with a popsicle stick to adhere it onto the adhesive. One thing to keep in mind with these foil sheets is they do come 6 sheets to a package, and they stick together kind of well. So when I first opened my package, I thought I only had 2 sheets, but you just simply fan them out, and there are 6 sheets, 2 each of 3 different colors. The one I'm using is a matte gold. It also had a matte copper and a matte silver in the collection that I purchased. So as you can see when I lift it up here, the foil has now transferred onto the adhesive. When you lift up, you can see if there's any areas where you forgot to rub or you didn't rub well enough and it needs a little bit more foil, and you can simply stick it back down there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of white cardstock and I'm going to take it to my paper trimmer and cut it to size. But as you can see, that gives you a beautiful effect, which is really great, especially for those of us who don't have laminators to foil in another way. Next, I'm getting the focal point of my card set up. This is the new Clearly Besotted stamp. It's called From All of Us. I stamped it with Memento Tuxedo Black. And next, I'm going ahead and painting with some Daniel Smith watercolors. These are beautiful colors, Green Apatite Genuine and Red Fuchsite Genuine. And I've put these into my palette, and now I'm going to go ahead and paint directly onto this watercolor paper. This is a Ranger paper that I stamped the image on. So this is a process, as watercolor is, that can take a little bit of time, so I've sped up the video a little bit. And what you'll see is on the first pass, I'm just laying the color down, and what you'll notice is that I'm taking some of it from my palette, and then sometimes I'm tapping my paintbrush off to the side onto my Ranger craft mat. And the reason that I'm doing that is I'm just trying to take a little bit of the pigment off of my brush so that it's not quite so concentrated when I come onto my card. Now the brush that I'm using, this is a Zig watercolor brush. This is the medium brush. These brushes do have water in the barrel, so if you find that you have a little bit too much pigment, you can squeeze a little bit on the brush so that some more water comes into the bristle part of your brush, which will dilute the color a little bit. Now for the red, what I noticed is the red in my dish, in my palette there, I had added a little bit too much water to it. So I also put a dap of the red paint onto my craft mat. So first thing I'm doing is laying down a really light wash of this red, which actually ends up coming out, because I'm using it in I've added so much water to it so that it's really just a wash. It dilutes the red quite a bit, so it actually is looking a little bit more sort of mauve. As well, I did stamp with a Memento Tuxedo Black, and that is a waterproof ink. However, what I did notice is that when I used too much water, I did get a little bit of smearing from the ink. So perhaps you might want to look at using an archival ink from Ranger if you were going to be using quite a bit of water. But in essence, what that did for me is, with a little bit of the black sort of smudging into my color a little bit, it did gray up the red a little bit, which was nice. It gave a little bit more sort of a mauve effect to the color, which ended up looking really great with my finished card. But if you're working with light colors, you might want to consider that you might want to work towards a more archival ink. Next thing you're going to do once it's all dry is you're going to set up with your dye. So this is the Matching From All of Us dye by Clearly Besotted, and today I am setting up my dye using some masking tape, or just scotch tape, sorry. And for this, you just lay it on. You don't have to press it super firmly because you don't want a super great hold. You want it to just hold the dye in place while you die cut it. After I get the tape on, I'm going to take it to my die cutting machine, and then it'll be all set. So next I'm going to my bloom paper pad, and we're going to use this first piece of paper with the pretty pink Posh stitched tabs die. So I'm laying up my gold foil emboss that I've done and my focal flower, and laying that to sort of decide how wide I want this mauve background paper to be. Then I put my scotch tape on it and take it to my die cut machine to cut it to size. Now I have a card set up. So this is just a piece of Nina Solar white cardstock that I cut 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches high and then folded it in half to make a card front. Now I am gluing on this tab section that I just die cut, and as you can see, because the paper pad was 6 inches long, there's some excess here, so I'm cutting off the excess with my scissors. And now the front of my card is more or less set up, and it's ready for me to add the focal point and the greeting onto this stamped image. So I'm going to go ahead now and get this focal point set up. Make sure that I like where everything is positioned. Give it a second go here. Make sure we're happy with everything. And what I decided is, instead of gluing it down right away, I'm going to use this stamp set. So this is the Essentials by Ellen, totally awesome stamp set. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp everything first just to make sure that I position everything the way that I want it. Now I'm lining these stamps up on a lined notebook paper so that I get them straight, because it's two different. If it's just one word, I don't get too worried about it. But if it's two different lines and two different stamps, it's nice to line it up that way to make sure that you like how everything is lined up and that everything is straight and you don't have one line that's, going off at an angle. So I've done that. Now I'm inking it up with a Memento Tuxedo black ink pad, and then I'm going to stamp it directly onto the card. There I found that I transferred a little bit of ink onto the block, so I wiped it off before I stamped, just in case. I don't generally rock my blocks when I stamp, but if I do, I'd rather not have any excess ink on the block that could potentially transfer over onto the card. So now that my greeting is stamped, now I can do the final step, which is glue everything down. So I'm gluing this foil section that we did as our first step, front and center, onto the card. And then for the floral stamped image, that I mounted on some pop dots so that there was a little dimension to the front of the card. So I'm peeling off the backing for those, and then I'm going to stick that centered onto this gold section. So as you can see, the foil embossing is super, super easy. It's a beautiful product, lots of great designs. There's a lot of SKUs, so check them out in the store. You will definitely enjoy them. Thank you so much for joining me today, and please let me know if you have any questions in the comment area, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Have a great day.